Mm, mm, mm. Uh, uh. Really, Vikings? You just lost by 37 points to the Dallas Cowboys. You gotta be joking. You lose by 37 points to the Cowboys in week 11. Now, we're 8-2 now, all because of you, Cowboys. Come on, Vikings. Now we play. Now we play. Now we play this upcoming Thursday for Week 12 this Thursday night against the New England Patriots at home for Week 12. All right, and we didn't get to score any touchdowns, Vikings. All right. Now let's see the Vikings stats. Kirk Cousins had 105 yards, and their backup quarterback Nick Mullins had 54 yards. Dalvin in the rushing, Dalvin Cook had 72 yards. Keeney Nwangwu had 1 yard. Alexander Madison had no yards. And Dalvin Cook had 11 carrying, and Keeney Nwangwu had 4 carrying, and Alexander Madison had 2 carrying of yards. And here's the receiving. TJ Hawkinson had 5 receptions and 34 yards, and Justin Jefferson had 3 receptions and 33 yards, and Adam Thielen had 2 yards. 2 receptions and 25 yards. And KJ Osborne had 2 receptions and 17 yards. Jalen Naylor had 1 reception and 15 yards. Jalen Rigor had 1 reception and 14 yards. Alexander Madison had 1 reception and 8 yards. Johnny Mund had 1 reception and 8 yards. Keeney Nwangwu also had 1 reception and 5 yards, and Dalvin Cook had no receptions or yards. And look at our defense. Andrew Booth had 9 tackles and assists. Cameron Bynum had 6 tackles and assists. Harrison Phillips had 6 tackles and 1 assist. Harrison Smith had 5 tackles and 2 assists. Patrick Peterson had 5 tackles. Jordan Hicks had 4 tackles and 2 assists. Jonathan Bullard had 3 tackles and 1 assist. Daniel Hunter had 3 tackles and 1 assist. Kyrus Tonga had 3 tackles and 1 assist. DJ Wanham had 3 tackles and 1 assist, too. Patrick Jones, too, had 2 tackles and 2 assists. Yep. Eric Kendricks had 2 tackles and 1 assist. Chandon Sullivan had 2 tackles and 0 assists. And James Lynch had 1 tackle and 0 assists. Josh Meterless had 1 tackle and 0 assists. And the others, Ryan Asmoa, too, had 1 assist. Troy Dye had 1 assist. Zadarius Smith had 1 assist, and Andrew DePola had 0 assists and 0 tackles. And the kick returns, Keeney Nwangwu had 2 returns and 48 yards, and Jalen Rigor had 1 return and 3 yards. Greg Joseph had 1 field goal attempt, and Greg Joseph only had 1 field goal attempt. And Ryan Wright had 7 punting and 337 yards. All right. Now let's take a look at the Cowboys stats, I meant. Dak Prescott had 276 yards. Cooper and their backup quarterback Cooper Rush had 31 yards. The rushing Tony Pollard had 15 carrying and 80 yards, and Ezekiel Elliott had 15 carrying and 42 yards. And Dak Prescott had 3 carrying and 16 yards, and Malik Davis had 7 carrying and 13 yards. All right, here's the receiving. Tony Pollard had 6 yards and 109 yards. CeeDee Lamb had 5 receptions and 45 yards. Noah Brown had 2 receptions and 42 yards. Michael Gallup had 3 receptions and 41 yards. Dalton Schultz had 3 receptions and 22 yards. Malik Davis had 2 receptions and 22 yards. Jake Ferguson had 2 receptions and 15 yards. Jalen Tolbert had 1 reception and 8 yards. And Ezekiel Elliott only had 1 reception and 5 yards. And Peyton Hendershot had 1 reception and 2 yards, and I think minus 2 yards. And the defense, Jalen Kearse had 4 tackles and 1 assist. Micah Parsons had 4 tackles. Dorrance Armstrong Jr. had 3 tackles. Anthony Brown had 3 tackles. Damone Clark had 3 tackles. And Trevon Diggs had 3 tackles. Leighton Vander Esch had 3 tackles. Sam Williams had 2 tackles and assists. And Dante Fuller Jr. had 2 tackles. And Ron Bland had 2 tackles. Donovan Wilson had 2 tackles. Neville Gallimore and had 1 tackle and 2 assists. DeMarcus Lawrence had 1 tackle and 1 assist. And Jabril Cox had 1 tackle and 1 assist. Chauncey Golston had 1 tackle. Calvin Joseph had 1 tackle. Azaza Oduduwa had 1 tackle. Israel Makumu had 1 assist. Carlos Watkins had 1 assist. Luke Gifford had none. CJ Goodwin had none. No kick returns. Kavonta Turpin had 4 returns and 34 yards. Brett Maher had 4 field goal attempts. Punting. Brian Anger had 101 yards. Here's the stats. Cowboys had 458 total yards, and only the Vikings had 183 total yards. And the passing yards, the Cowboys have 307 passing yards, and the Vikings had 110 passing yards. And the Cowboys had 151 rushing yards, and the Vikings only had 73 rushing yards. In yards per play, the Cowboys only had 6.5, and we had 3.4 yards for my team, the Vikings. And Cowboys only had 23 first downs, and the Vikings only had 16 first downs. And the Cowboys had 70 total plays, and the Vikings had 54 total plays. And the Cowboys only had 2 punts, and the Vikings had 7 punts. Wow. Just wow, Vikings. Come on, let's hope we win on Thursday against the New England Patriots on Thanksgiving night. So yeah. That's it.